Welcome to another video. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to talk about the Elder Scrolls 6 leaks and information that have been dribbling out across the internet. Today we're going to discuss the 4chan leaks, 2 separate days of leaks. We're going to start with the earlier one, and let's get right into it. Now, with all leaks, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You pull information out of them that sounds about right for the game studio. Now, that being said, a lot of this stuff sounds pretty spot on for Mr. Todd Howard and Bethesda Game Studios. 9 out of 10 times, leaks are pretty accurate nowadays. These employees want to spill the beans, they come out and they love whistleblowing and leaking information. Maybe they're disgruntled, maybe they want to troll, maybe it's a mix. Let's see what they have in store for us today. So this first one, the leaker says, "Hi, I wanted to share some info regarding TES6, the Elder Scrolls 6. The team's goal is to create the greatest fantasy world simulator of all time. 3 world spaces, Hammerfell, High Rock, and Skyrim's Reach. Development's going very smooth. The team has a clear vision of what they want the game to be and are making great progress. Todd is more involved right now since the Fallout TV show and Indiana Jones games have wrapped up. Sailing is part of the game, but doesn't have as much of an emphasis as some are making it out, confined to activities in the Iliac Bay. Maomur are added as a playable race after the Almeri Dominion raised Pydonia, sending refugees fleeing to mainland Tamriel. The primary skill system uses the traditional Elder Scrolls system to train it to level it. There are 17 main skills. Lockpicking and sneak are rolled into one skill as right now. Minor skills will be added, but they don't impact the player level. They govern smaller activities such as lore comprehension, farming, climbing, cooking, and much more." This sounds accurate to me because as games progress further in their sequels, they seem to reduce skills all the time. From Morrowind to Oblivion there was skill reduction, not as many skills. From Oblivion to Skyrim there was less skills, so on and so forth. This kind of sounds real. And then remember this later when we listen to the other leaker, they talk more about the magic system being reduced a little bit and combined, consolidated. The cell system of loading rooms and exteriors is still used, but the transition between them has been cleaned up in such a way it's essentially seamless. You'll have to see it for yourself. So it sounds like loading times have been reduced significantly. Probably this game should be loaded onto an SSD, obviously. Big open world game. Combat is still in the early phases. A lot of internal debate on how to handle this. Make it more Souls-ish. Take some influence from Kingdom Come Deliverance and make fights a bit slower and more methodical with a focus on directional attacks. So they're still working out the combat. We'll hear more about this from the other leaker. Magic in comparison is doing great. Alteration, for instance, offers new ways of traveling around that greatly outclass Fortified Jump and Levitate. Illusion has some truly incredible new spells to let you interact with NPCs in ways you haven't been able to before. Very interesting. Speaking of NPCs, Radiant AI got some very big upgrades. NPCs behave in a far more believable way now. In the Elder Scrolls 6 there are 2 types of cities, capitals and regular cities. Capitals try to be more closely matched to a realistic scale with 300 plus buildings and thousands of NPCs all scheduled. There are only 2 capitals. The Reach does not have one. The regular cities are more similar to scale in past Bethesda Game Studios games, although for the most part are still larger than what you'd see in Skyrim. Outstanding graphics, like a lot better than what you'd expect from Bethesda. I think it's going to blow a lot of people away. This whole capital idea I'm a little worried about. If it's like Starfield, basically a bunch of nameless NPCs just dribbling about, I don't think it's going to be good if that's the case. When they say all scheduled, what does that mean exactly? 1,000 NPCs scheduled? Little unbelievable, but we'll have to see. If it's like a hybrid of like real named NPCs and Starfield where there's just big cities that feel alive, people doing things. We'll see. Now the next leaker from a couple days later, the guy says, been working on ES6 for about a year, ask me anything. So someone asks, alright, I'll bite, who's the lore writer? Did they bring MK back? That's Michael Kirkbride. He was the famous lore creator for earlier games like Morrowind and Oblivion. He made the whole foundation of the universe. So the guy responds, after Morrowind, BGS, Bethesda Game Studios, hasn't had a dedicated lore writer. Back in 2002, they had writers who were also amateur quest designers. Nowadays, it's the opposite. Quest designers handle both quest and lore, even though they aren't professional writers. A prime example is Emil Pagliarulo, sorry if I butchered that, who went from designing levels for Thief to becoming a lead writer and designer for an entire game, largely because he created some fun quests in Oblivion. So he's responding again. Kirkbride has not come back. No, Emil's handling all the main writing. We have an internal lore Bible that does have some Kirkbride work in it. However, all of Starfield's complaints and getting made fun of for not having a design doc got them to reevaluate this sort of thing going forward. Bethesda has overhauled a lot of how they approach this sort of thing because of Starfield. Someone's asking if the game's going to have nudity. To be more specific, he asked very specific parts of nudity. You know, one of the 4chan people. No, but the game will have more nudity than previous ES games. There is a house of courtesans you can find in Hammerfell, where women and men lounge around and can be paid to engage in implied sexual activity with the player, kind of like prostitutes from Fallout 3. One is a nasty looking wood elf who gives you a disease when you buy his time. His, he says. Someone's asking about in-house morale. Things are mostly pleasant. Starfield is so well, but the negative reception has rattled the higher-ups a bit. But an effort has been made to correct many of the mistakes of the game's troubled development. Someone's asking about ship combat and sailing, ship combat and crew building, as well as underwater exploration. Combat underwater will make a return. We're also considering adding firearms to contribute to the pirate aesthetic side of things, though Todd doesn't seem keen on the idea. I don't know if there are firearms in the Elder Scrolls universe. I am not sure. So someone asks now, when is Fallout 76 shutting down, and when is Fallout 5 releasing? And someone also asks, are Khajiit sexy? So he says Fallout 76 makes money hand over fist. Same with Elder Scrolls Online, so they'll probably never shut down. Fallout 6, he says, I don't know if he meant to say that or Fallout 5, is probably a decade or more off. All we know so far is probably going to take place in San Francisco, have the Brotherhood of Steel as a major faction, and NCR Remnant, now just called the Remnant, as an enemy faction. No, it's making too much money. Fallout 76 isn't going anywhere. It's a great game, I love it. Depends on your definition, I guess. You can choose to play as a couple of different types of Khajiits, he's answering the Khajiit question, more humanoid or more feline, with different PC voices to match. Yes, your protagonist will talk again. So it's going to have talking protagonist, Starfield style. Will it have more or less RPG elements than Skyrim? Will dragons be shoehorned in? Any new weapon types planned? Someone's asking. RPG elements are being stressed in the sense that you will have more choice in quests and factions, as well as the ability to express yourself via the settlement system. You will still have stats, but you only have 3 skill trees that branch out into twice as many perks as Skyrim. Yes, dragons return, but are a boss enemy type and no longer dynamic. The Dragonborn disappeared between games, so now they are just a fact of life. Firearms are being considered. Emil has pushed hard for it. You have a unique voice for each race, as well as the ability to customize it slightly with pitch shifting. It will be more akin to Witcher 3, a small menu that pops up with a summary of your dialogue. You'll not always exactly have 4 choices, sometimes less, sometimes more. So the whole voices thing, modern data suggests that target audience does not like having a mute protagonist. Blame Zoomers. And then someone's asking about Hammerfell region. No, the desert areas may have had some slight inspiration taken. The giant sandworm is more of a Dune reference. So the movement in the game is the same tech as Starfield. They feel much smoother to control ever since they can't have as much freedom of movement. So he's answering a question about ship movement. Sailing the ships, much smoother control, but less freedom of movement because you're not going up, down, left, right, different, Z quadrants. The setting is Hammerfell and High Rock with an open ocean to explore with procedural generation. The game is set to come out in 2026, but no one believes that. 2027 at absolute best. The game takes twice as long due to our balloon size and increased scope. People call the games mid, but only Starfield has had what we consider a truly negative reception. So are guilds making a comeback, like to the traditional guilds? Not really, only the Thieves Guild's making a return as a traditional guild, as seen in previous games. You have to fence a certain amount of stolen goods to progress. There is no Fighters Guild or Mages Guild. Every faction in the game is political in some fashion, like a Fallout game, except for the Pirate Corsairs, who you have to join. How is Todd doing, someone's asking. Todd's honestly great, maybe a bit out of touch. Starfield's reception rattled him a little. NPCs now all being killable, and the return of the thread of fate has been severed was one of his decisions in direct response to complaints about Starfield. You guys will probably be pleasantly surprised by some of the changes going forward. So it sounds like you'll be able to harm and dispatch any NPC in the game, even quest givers. I love that about Morrowind. I'm happy they're bringing that back. Someone's asking about the engine of the game. Unreal Engine's being tested with the Oblivion remaster, but opinions are negative on it in-house. Bethesda has invested a lot of time into the creation engine, including hiring popular mod authors who are familiar with it. Throwing this out would be a tough sell. For what it's worth, the kind of games we make would not play well with Unreal. Someone's asking about mods. They cut a deal with Nexus mod community to allow traditional modding to still exist. The plan is to wall the mod scene off a bit and continue to commit to the Creation Club content so we could treat our games and the mod community going forward as a live service of sorts. That's how they make their money, with these live service things, almost like Fallout 76. Certain things are being left open for modders to play with, but many large mod authors have a back foot into the door with the Creation Club and Nexus. So someone's asking about why Baldur's Gate 3 was so successful compared to Starfield. BG3 was successful because you could have sex a lot and make a lot of different choices that affect the game. We have implemented that into Elder Scrolls 6 design. Every major companion's romanceable, including a fully animated scene for each. Each side quest has multiple outcomes. Mechanical depth is a non-issue that people vastly overestimate regarding who cares. So someone's asking now, Hammerfell, does this mean the game is going to be full of Redguard towns? I'm not racist, but read the room on the state of gamers and how reactionary they are. All it takes is an assumption of, quote, black characters everywhere to be dead on arrival today. Like, all the people on X and Reddit, and they freak out with how woke games are. So this could be seen as bad, this guy's asking. He's also asking, with the growth of AI, it's not unrealistic that people will be able to make mods from scratch with AI in the coming years. I think Bethesda is making a mistake here, trying to wall anything off. You're trying to sell catered DLC in-world, while anyone will soon be able to make any DLC they want on a whim. I lean more into enabling this rather than cutting it off, but I'm not a money-obsessed private equity parasite. Look at Inzoi, for example, and how to lean into custom content. So the guy's answering now. Well, someone else is actually answering, and then the leaker's answering. I think chuds who actually like the Elder Scrolls will defend a Hammerfell setting. I will anyway. Their aesthetic are Arab-inspired, and their history is Japan-inspired. They aren't just some We Was Kang's Wakanda stuff. They're a mishmash of cultures like all the other races. And they're one of the more interesting races in the setting. I guess it depends how BGS handles it though. You can also make the argument they don't belong in this setting like you can with new Assassin's Creed. Hammerfell and the Redguards have been around since the Elder Scrolls 1. So you can't make that argument like Assassin's Creed. So the leaker's saying now, yes, it's a lot of work voicing every NPC would have sounded crazy back in the day, but we did that in Oblivion. With modern technology, it's very feasible, like using AI. And the first half an hour has you aboard a prison barge bound for High Rock. It is waylaid by the Thalmor in a large action sequence that ends with you and the Redguard, your first potential companion, barely escaping once a Kraken shows up and destroys both ships. You wash up on the shore of a starter island with the main goal of being to acquire a ship. First line of dialogue is, "Oh, you're awake. I was getting worried I'd have to suffer the rest of the voyage with a corpse." The game will be full of red guards, yes. We fully expect it to be called woke by reactionaries. Microsoft has diversity mandates anyway, so our hands are tied. 2 of your companions are a transgender as well, an Argonian and a red guard. That's pretty funny. The people on the board of 4chan react very funnily to the transgender Argonian lizard. Someone asked, is Emil okay? He is fine. He's very passionate. For the most part, he seems confident in the writing of the game. He likes that we've developed the factions into something more important rather than disposable guilds. So he kind of means like by the time you finish all the guilds in the previous games, you have great memories and experiences, but then it pretty much, you don't really use them for much besides radiant quests. A lot of people didn't use them at all. If you join the Thalmor, he's saying, for instance, you can conquer Hammerfell. It's a very meaningful change that will affect side quest and even New Game Plus runs. So the game will have New Game Plus, it sounds like. Someone asked, how will Bethesda pander to the Chinese audience? New Chinese race? And he answers, Akavir. Interesting, that sounds like it could be real or it could be fake. But Akavir is the race on a whole other continent that conquered Tamriel. They were like a lizard dragon race. There's also like a monkey race over there, a race of tiger people. Someone says, how does Todd expect to have ship combat without guns and gunpowder for cannons? Just going to be boarding ships? Honestly, I'd be okay with that, but why even call it ship combat at this point? Someone else says cannons actually ruin ship combat for me. So the leaker says in response to that, the basic story involves 2 major conflicts, the Thalmor conflict in Hammerfell and High Rock, which is in the midst of a massive upheaval due to the descent of a terrible plague and political infighting. Both of the major quests are rather disconnected. Slode are a major enemy to deal with. Dragons are in the game, one can be spoken to, the rest are just enemies you can fight. Cannons are in the game and can be enchanted. Right now they are basically magic fireball spitters. Boarding is a major aspect of the game. You can use ropes to swing over to enemy ships, though they don't work very well. Argonians now have a more amphibian quality, including webbed hands and feet, but you can choose presets that are more in line with Morrowind and Skyrim interpretations. High Rock is about to pop off in a civil war. You get to choose who you ally with. Emergent systems are still in place, with NPC schedules, ability to kill everyone you encounter. The entirety of the sailing and piracy system is built around systemic depth and interaction. There is more narrative, more quest, more storytelling, but it's an open world game at the end of the day. So now someone asks about the magic. I just want to know about magic. Is spellcrafting back? Great question. Is mysticism back? Are any of the magic schools reworked? What kind of new magic effects have been added to the game? So he's answering some other questions than the magic question. He says, we have many immersive sim elements within the game. You mistakenly believe that propping up our narrative design, which is something we are routinely critiqued for, failing at, is something that comes entirely at the expense of our open world systems. It does not. Breath of Wild is a joke compared to what we allow you to do in this game. Spellcrafting will not be returning. That's bad, I don't like that. But there are more spells overall than Skyrim. Mysticism is not back. Alteration and illusion have been reworked into a single skill tree. Water manipulation spells as well as weather effect in general. You'll be able to summon storms and waves, or to make enemies wet so that lightning spells are more effective, or to put out fires. Body armor is in, and you also have layered armor back. You'll be able to put robes on over armor like in Morrowind. And someone asked, do Atronox have boobs again? They're actually entirely sexless, no boobs on the Atronox. They're much more primordial now. Well, that was the end of the leaker answering questions. He kind of snuck away quietly. People kept asking stuff and complaining about things he said. I think that we could take this information and we could see what direction the game is going if it is real. I think a lot of this stuff does sound real. I think the game will come out the end of 2026, beginning of 2027, especially with the scope that they're doing. Some things I don't like the magic not being craftable, etc. But we will see. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you believe these leaks? What do you want to see in the Elder Scrolls 6? Let me know. And thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.